Part 87. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 862. If the person who became Yuanying today was Lu Yixin's proud disciple, someone said this, he would only be happy. But now Lily has been kicked out by him and has already formed a grudge. The higher her ability, the more Lu Yixin will be. How can she get people to praise her if she has no peace? This young monk seems to know this musician nephew. I wonder who this monk named Zonyan is. Does Brother Lu know? Someone asked. Lu Yixin shook his head, and there were strange looks on the faces of the people around him. Seeing that he had obtained the Yuanying cultivator, he looked unhappy. Everyone has cultivated to the Yuanying cultivator, and no one has matured with age. The monsters, seeing such a scene, knew that there must be a connection, so they stopped talking. At this time, when Lily in Taishung saw Zonyan leaving the Tianjia competition formation, she decided to give up the competition, and when she was about to start the fight again, the corners of her mouth suddenly pursed. When she was about to give up, Lily didn't expect that Zonyan would give up without hesitation and turn around and leave. For Lily, this favor was far more valuable than the medicinal materials Zonyan gave her that day. Since he entered the mission and was rescued by Zonyan, he has asked him to help several times. The two of them have not contacted each other for decades. When he asked for help before, he did not hesitate to take action. This time he knew that he had to. After entering the competition, Zonyan even admitted defeat and left. This favor was so precious that Lily was speechless. Senior brother. She sent a message to Zonyan, and Zonyan's voice quickly came over, let's start all over again. He didn't say any unnecessary words, but just such a simple sentence made Lily sigh and wanted to say something more to thank him. But he found that words of thanks seemed too simple compared to Zonyan's friendship for helping each other. Senior brother, if I need my little sister's help in the future, I will definitely live up to my trust. After a while, Zonyan softly replied, yes. Next. There was no reply. Because she had won 3 games in a row, Lily got the privilege of taking a half-day break. She got off the stage and found a remote corner to sit cross-legged, took out some of the elixirs that were originally used to feed the bees and stuffed them into her mouth. It took most of the day to replenish the spiritual power in her body, and her next game has just arrived. As long as she fights 3 more games, Lily will be able to stand out from the heaven-level competition here and get the right to enter the ruins. The first opponent is in the late stage of Jindan. This person has a single wood spiritual root, and a wooden flute made of unknown material in his hand is an extremely powerful magic weapon. And when the flute sounded, it had the effect of suppressing mental power. Lily spent a lot of effort to defeat him. The second opponent was a sword cultivator who entered the nascent soul stage. This was the first person Lily really encountered after entering the competition. After a fierce battle with opponents of the same level, Lily was lucky enough to stay. When the nascent soul stage monk flew away, Lily sat cross-legged and adjusted her spiritual power, turning a blind eye to the surprised looks around her. In the last round, Lily thought that the next person would be a more powerful monk than before, but she didn't see Luo Chen, who was wearing a white shirt, his hair tied up with a jade crown, and a sinister face, leaping onto the stage. Come. You are really lucky. I didn't expect you to be able to survive until now. Luo Chen's eyes were full of unwillingness at this time. He had worked hard for so many years. He was a disciple of Shuanglingan under the master of the sword section. He has always been a senior brother in the section. He has always been majestic in the sword section. At that time, he often used the wind to control the boat and flew among the major peaks of the sword section. It was so enjoyable. He never thought that one day both parents would die. Li Beihe, who is just an ordinary disciple of Wulingan, would only follow behind him when she was young, and sometimes did not dare to speak loudly even to ask him for advice. One day, her cultivation will be higher than hers. For Luo Chen, this was simply unbearable. 30 years ago, he was humiliated in front of Lily Cave and heard the former good-for-nothing call his junior brother. 30 years later, he thought he had the strength to retaliate for what he had done before. When he was ashamed, Lily gave him a deeper blow. When he was complacent about entering the golden elixir stage, he guessed that Lily, who might only stay in the late stage of foundation building throughout his life, had already entered the golden elixir stage one step ahead of him. Even if she can fight until now, the master said that she may still have the strength of the early stage of nascent soul. 30 years ago, he asserted that Lily might only die during the chi refining period. 30 years later, he asserted that Lily would have difficulty breaking through the foundation. 30 years ago, when he called Lily as junior sister, she was laughed at mercilessly in public. 30 years later, he remembered the time he met Lily a few months ago and called her his nephew in order to wash away the shame. She didn't say a word, but she defeated him in front of all the elders and destroyed him. The magic weapon almost caused his strength and cultivation to fall to the foundation building stage. 100 years ago, he was the eldest brother of the sword sect and the most favored disciple of the sword sect master. He was born with dual spiritual roots and was a highly valued genius in the sword section. Lily was just a disciple accepted by his master by name, and he was still a 5-year-old. Who would have thought that it would take 100 years for Hedong and 100 years for Hexi to be a waste with spiritual roots? Since Luo Chen is here, there shouldn't be Lily in the sword sect. The shame of being humiliated in public and the hatred of destroying the magic weapon were lingering in Luo Chen's heart at this time, causing his aura to gradually soar. He had been in the early stage of the golden elixir for several years. In the past few years, he had worked hard to practice and swallow the elixir. Had long maintained his magic power at its peak, but now that he was stimulated, the magic power in his body rioted, and Luo Chen vaguely looked like he was about to break through to the middle stage of the golden elixir. A breakthrough at this time? Interesting, someone in the audience laughed. On the stage, Luo Chen stared at Lily and snorted coldly. Today is your death day. Master Nephew Luo, you want my life just because of your cultivation at the golden core stage. Are you being too childish, Master Luo? Lily couldn't help laughing when she heard what Luo Chen said. Until this time, she finally stopped suppressing her cultivation and released the pressure of the early stage of nascent soul. As soon as the spiritual pressure was released, Luo Chen was greatly restrained. He was sluggish for a moment, and the next moment he laughed evilly, and a golden elixir flew out of the kinkan ring in his hand, which he stuffed into his mouth. Luo Chen's spiritual power, which was originally ready to break through to the middle stage, suddenly increased sharply. He exuded a large amount of spiritual pressure. Even under the pressure of Lily's nascent soul stage monks, his rank began to increase. After breaking through to the middle stage of the golden core, his magic power, the rate of increase did not stop, and even directly broke through to the late stage of Jindan. Such a scene was unheard of and unseen by everyone before. The people around were shocked. When Lu Yishan among the crowd saw such a scene, the corners of his mouth finally showed. A smile comes. As he expected, Lily had indeed broken through the nascent soul stage, and used some unknown method to conceal her cultivation level. No wonder when he issued the pressure of the nascent soul stage that day, trying to give her a blow, everyone they were all affected and worked hard to resist, but she was the only one who did not change her expression at that time. Lu Yishan was so angry at Lily's behavior that he didn't think about it deeply. Although he felt doubtful afterward, he really couldn't believe it. The disciple of Wollingen was able to conceive a baby within 100 years, but he paid a heavy price just because of his momentary negligence. He gave Luo Chen the pill left by Lily's mother that day, which he was supposed to use to break through to the middle stage of nascent soul, and also handed over to Luo Chen a heaven-defying object that he had obtained in a secret realm many years ago. When he, Lu Yishan, thought of this, his heart still ached a little, but to get rid of Lily, it was all worth it. He was old, and the hope of breaking through the middle stage of nascent soul in this life was already very slim. He wanted to keep more pills. To live for a period of time is just to hope that the disciple can break through the Yuanying stage and take charge of the sword sect in the future. If this pill is given to him, if Luo Chen can break through the Yuanying stage within 100 years, then after he is incarnate in 100 years, the reincarnation will be completed after the military solution. Lu Yixin felt that it was worth paying such a high price to clear the obstacles for his disciple to take charge of the sword sect in the future, remove the lily block on his way to practice, and relieve his inner demons. He has only one apprentice, and as long as it is for his own good, pills and magic weapons are nothing. You don't have to talk to me. I never thought about letting you live today. Now, why are you pretending? When you humiliated me in public, you should have thought about today. Now you say what? It's too late, Luo Chen sneered. There was so much spiritual energy in his body that he almost exploded to death. In order to vent the spiritual energy in his body, he waved his hand, and the 8 gray shadows flashed away. When they came out, a terrifying aura came from these gray figures. After these gray figures stood firm according to their respective positions, the roar of dragons and tigers came out from their mouths. When the people around saw this scene, their expressions couldn't help but change. What Luo Chen summoned were 8 machine puppet beasts with enough fake infant cultivation. These puppet beasts should be quite old. Although their bodies were dilapidated, the intimidation of one of them was enough to create a huge impact. 8 they only appear at the same time, and they appear to be complete sets. If they are joined together, their power will be even more extraordinary. A mere ordinary golden core disciple of the sword sect would actually have such a good thing in his hands. First, there was the aura-rich heavenly spirit pill. Although he didn't know what kind of pill it was, Luo Chen's cultivation level increased by 2 levels after taking it, but it was noticed by others. He was already very greedy. Now he has such a mechanism. The puppet beast, everyone around was extremely quiet. Except for the competition in other arenas at this time, most of the people gathered around here. Even Master Lian, the abbot of Laiyan Temple, stood in the crowd, staring at watch from the stage. When Lily first showed her strength at the nascent soul stage, everyone thought she would definitely win against this golden core disciple, but now Luo Chen's strength and cultivation have reached the level of a half-step fake infant, and he has summoned this disciple again. The situation of the 8 puppet beasts in the false infant stage immediately changed. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 863. Not only was Luo Chen no longer inferior to Lily in strength at this time, but with these 8 mechanism puppet beasts that could jointly attack and defend, he had already defeated Lily by a margin. Everyone did not blink, fearing that they would not miss a glance. Luo Chen in Taishung suddenly, he felt very happy. The sudden increase in strength made his self-confidence soar. Ever since he met Lily, he had never felt so happy for a moment. 30 years ago, he was suppressed by a useless disciple. So that he can breathe a sigh of relief in his heart until now, and now it is finally time for him to vent his anger. Li Behi, I want you to sacrifice your blood to my 8 machine puppet beasts. He raised his chin and raised his head. The strands of long hair that were not completely tied up began to flutter with the spiritual pressure on his body, and his eyes were full of emotions. It was a cold killing intent. Originally, commanding so many puppet beasts would consume a lot of spiritual power, but for Luo Chen, who had just swallowed the elixir, he was like a nouveau riche at this time, with so much spiritual power that he could not bear it at all. As he couldn't use it all up, he divided his mental power into 8 strands, controlled these puppets respectively, and directed these puppets to rush towards Lily. Under the stands, Master Yin clasped his hands together and glanced at Lu Yixin. Brother Lu, both of them are disciples of the sword section. One is a late-stage Jindan Dzogchen and the other is a nascent soul. They are brothers of the same section. Why should they fight each other to the death? So far, in the opinion of the old monk, the two disciples are really talented. It's a pity to lose one of our generation. The old monk is in charge. How about asking Uncle Master to make an exception and include these two disciples on the list? When people around him heard this, they were a little jealous, but Lily's strength at the Yuanying stage was enough to join the ranks of great monks and become famous all over the world. Luo Chen was half a step up to Yuanying, and today he was promoted to 2 levels in a row on the competition stage. And summoning 8 fake infant puppet beasts, it is conceivable that it will definitely cause a sensation in the Xinglan Sea after today. Both of them have the strength of the nascent soul stage, and they are indeed qualified to enter the palace ruins outside the territory. In addition, because the master was highly respected and said that he was going to ask Master Nguyen of the transformation god period, the people around him did not say anything. When Lu Yishan heard Yin's words, a complicated look flashed in his eyes. If it was 3 months ago. If he had known that Lily had reached the nascent soul stage, he might not have established such an enemy. Instead, he would have found a way to make friends with her and make her use him. But $1,000 can't buy it. I already knew that the grudge has been forged, and it is useless to talk about anything else now. If he doesn't kill Lily, Lily will also find a way to get rid of him. The most important elixir among the relics left by the Le family and his wife has been swallowed by Luo Chen. How can Lily give up? I have paid so much. If I don't take this opportunity to get rid of her, how long will it take? Senior brother is compassionate, but the way of cultivation is to go against heaven. No matter life or death, there will always be this disaster. If you are timid, you will only add to your inner demons in the future, he declined politely. After hearing Liao Yin's suggestion, Liao Yin sighed. Now, although Lily is already at the nascent soul stage, she has been fighting for a long time and her spiritual power has been exhausted. Luo Chen has the trump card in his hand. Too many, and she might not be able to escape this disaster. At this moment, I couldn't see Lu Yishan's displeasure with Lily. He even had thoughts of killing Lily. It's just that although the sword sect is nominally affiliated with Leiyin Temple, the internal affairs of the sect have nothing to do with Leiyin Temple. He just wants to intervene in the internal fighting within the section. I also learned from Wu Ming, and I lowered my head because of this. He touched the Buddhist beads in his hand twice and said no more. Several machine puppet beasts sprayed grey mist from their mouths and rushed towards Lily. They were as menacing as lightning. One of the puppet beasts had a fake infant stage cultivation level. 8 of them attacked at the same time. When a monk in the middle stage of nascent soul struck, there was a puppet beast in front of him, and behind him Ketchen had already blocked Lily's retreat. He grabbed a piece of golden talisman paper in his hand, bit off his finger, drew it on it, threw it into the air, turned into a small tower, and started. It was only about the size of a palm, and finally grew bigger and bigger, slamming down towards Lily's location with a thundering force. You're dead, Luo Chen smiled ferociously as the surrounding spiritual power was chaotic. He was very determined to kill Lily this time. Not only did he swallow some precious elixir, he even summoned such a machine beast. Now even this high-grade magic talisman has been taken out and used, obviously to kill Lily in this competition venue. Remembering Lu Yishan's words about life and death when he was in the Jianzhong Hall 3 months ago, a murderous intent flashed in Lily's eyes. Since Luo Chen was unkind, she was naturally unjust as well. There was nowhere to hide at this moment and there was no way to avoid it. Seeing that the machine puppet beast was almost rushing in front of him, Lily patted the spirit beast bag, and the sound of the buzzing purple bee flapping its wings suddenly sounded. Calculating the direction in which the machine puppet beasts would attack her, Lily directed the purple bees to cover her chest. All this happened between the lightning and flint, and with a loud boom, the machine puppet beasts rushed in front of her. At that moment, 8 of them magically merged into one, turning into a huge silver ferocious wolf, and grabbed Lily's chest with one palm. A terrible pressure came, and Lily stepped forward to meet it without dodge. There were tremors from the protective formations outside the competition stage. Everyone around was startled and their expressions changed drastically. They each took out their own protective magic weapons and blocked them in front of their chests. Master Liao shook his head slightly and whispered in his mouth, "Good." There was a muffled sound of buzz, and when the palm hit Lily's chest, a large amount of spiritual power burst out, and the sound of swish, swish, swish sounded. A large number of purple bees on her chest withstood the blow and began to move incessantly. It fell like rain. Although the purple bees took most of the attacks for her, the power of this claw was equivalent to a full-strength blow from a monk in the middle stage of nascent soul, and it was even more powerful than Lily had imagined before. Therefore, she still couldn't help but groaned. Her internal organs seemed to be displaced. She opened her mouth and spat out a large mouthful of blood, and her body was hit backwards like a kite that had taken off its strings. This is the 8 treasure mechanism beast that Master accidentally obtained from an ancient cave 300 years ago. Its characteristic is that it can be combined into one. You didn't expect it, ha 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 ha. Luo Chen laughed proudly. There was a sound behind Lily, but his voice stopped abruptly the next moment. How is it possible? You actually. This palm was equivalent to a powerful blow from a monk in the middle stage of nascent soul. When the terrifying pressure came out, Luo Chen he felt that he was almost out of control. Even though these machine beasts had recognized him as their master, under this pressure, his legs felt trembling. After this blow, Lily lacked spiritual power. And it is only the early stage of yuanying. As the monks go to the back, the gap at each level is huge. The monks in the early stage of yuanying are equivalent to an ant struggling to survive in front of the monks in the middle stage of yuanying. Luo Chen originally thought that Lily would be shattered by this blow. Even if she was alert, even if the yuanying came out of her body, he was already prepared to never give her a chance to be reborn if she did this. Wanted to kill her nascent soul to vent his hatred, but he didn't expect that under such a blow, Lily only vomited blood and did not die. Too much nonsense. Lily crushed the elixir bottle in her hand and poured a large amount of golden elixir into her mouth. A large amount of spiritual energy poured into her body, limbs, and bones. The severe pain in her chest was relieved. Following the blow just now, he flew behind Luo Chen with lightning speed. Luo Chen's surprise was no small matter. When he first heard Lily talking nonsense about him, he felt a surge of resentment in his heart. But soon after Lily used the tricks, he could no longer feel anything else. He subconsciously wanted to summoning her magic weapon. Lily did not give him this chance, and purple lightning flashed in her hand. 30 years ago, Luo Chen had been hit by her with the 5 thunder curse, and he still remembered it. Now he felt the familiar power of thunder and lightning again. Compared with 30 years ago, the 5 thunder curse used during the nascent soul stage was even more powerful. It is far more powerful than the one used when cultivating the golden elixir stage. Terrible spiritual pressure spread all around Luo Chen, and the hair on his back stood up. In more than 100 years of cultivation, he had never truly felt that death was so close to him. With the crackling thunder and lightning it carried terrifying power, as if it could burn him to ashes. How dare you, bitch! Seeing such a scene, Lu Yishan in the audience couldn't help but stood up and shouted in shock and anger. Luo Chen could no longer hear the master's voice in his ears. He just saw it clearly. Seeing Lily's cold face, a large ball of purple light flashed in a raised hand. Little junior sister, please spare me. At this critical moment of life and death, Luo Chen subconsciously said this begging for mercy. Luo Chen was so heroic when he summoned the machine puppet beast just now. Now he saw that he was no match for Lily. Now Lily was behind him. He didn't even have time to summon the machine puppet beast in front of him to block Lily's attack. At that moment, the instinct to survive and the fear of death overwhelmed everything else. As soon as Luo Chen said the words, he was stunned for a moment, and then a bright red light flashed in his eyes, and he whispered again one sentence. Little junior sister, considering our friendship, are you really going to be cruel to senior brother? As soon as he finished speaking, Lily's originally raised hand paused, and the lightning and thunder in her hand, carrying extremely terrifying spiritual pressure, stopped in her palm. Seeing that she did not cast the 5 thunder curse at the first time, Luo Chen breathed a sigh of relief. He thought that his begging had an effect, and his eyes showed a look of ecstasy. However, after his life safety was guaranteed, he suddenly remembered he actually bowed his head and admitted his mistake in front of this girl from the same sect who had brought humiliation to him several times. In front of so many monks in Xinglan, his self-esteem was once again trampled under Lily's feet. Luo Chen's eyelids drooped, and a few rays of mental power began to mobilize the 8 machine puppet beasts again. Today's shame, if he didn't kill Lily, he would have no face to stand in the world. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 864. When both of my parents died, I was grateful to my senior brother for giving me the sword sex mental skills, but I never thanked you. Here, Li Bei thanks my senior brother back. Then Lily paused when she heard Luo Chen's words. She saw the gleam of ecstasy and hope in Luo Chen's eyes because of her words, as well as a bit of resentment. Even his clenched fist seemed to loosen a little because of Lily's words. Luo Chen thought that when he begged Lily for mercy, she said such words and said she wanted to be grateful to him, and she would definitely let him live. He grinned, and his pale face still showed that he had just been frightened. Cold sweats and stiffness afterwards. Since you know that I am kind to you. It's just senior brother, I can't agree to your request. I'm sorry. After Lily said this expressionlessly, she took the 5 thunder curse in her hand at a very close distance and happened to hit Luo Chen's face. Thinking that he had escaped death, and even imagining that Lily might be killed by a conjoined blow from several of his machine puppet beasts in the next moment, Luo Chen only saw a flash of purple light in his mind. For a moment, he felt only numbness, and a stream of burnt moxibustion poured down from the top of his head. A large amount of electric current penetrated him in one breath. His pale face even had a smile that he thought he could survive before, and the electric current was quickly cut off. Even because he was too distracted to beg for mercy before, thinking that he could survive, Luo Chen could not even escape at such a critical moment, and was instantly killed by a single blow under the 5 thunder curse. The sound of sizzling electric current sounded, and as the lightning current coursed through Luo Chen's body, his body remained intact at first. The giant wolf that roared and rushed behind Lily was 2 or 3 steps away from Lily. Because it lacked the control of its owner, it suddenly stopped moving, and its red eyes quickly lost their luster. It fell to the ground with a boom and split into 8 machine puppet beasts. When the 8 machine beasts fell down, they brought up strong winds. When the wind blew, Lily's hair and clothes flew up. Luo Chen's body, which originally seemed to be complete, was gently blown by the wind and gradually turned into dust, scattered in the air. Spare you, Lily curled her lips. This time, before she killed Luo Chen, the mission fulfilled the original owner's wish to apologize to Luo Chen and thank him. If Luo Chen had not killed her in the first place, Lily might spare him. But after he had the desire to kill, how could Lily spare him? Ah! An extremely miserable scream came from Chen Wantang's mouth under the stands. Lu Yishan was so angry that he couldn't control his identity as the leader of a sect, and broke the restriction and rushed into Taishung. When the disciple he regarded as his own son was restrained by Lily, Lu Yishan had a bad feeling, but he didn't expect that Lily would really dare to kill Luo Chen, and he had paid so much for this disciple. The only top-grade heavenly spirit pill was given to him to swallow, and he even handed over the 8 mechanical puppet beasts from the ancient Jiu cave that he had obtained hundreds of years ago into Luo Chen's hands. Under such circumstances, he originally thought that Chen was bound to win, but he didn't expect that Chen would still be defeated by Lily in the end. Not only could he not get rid of Lily successfully, but he also lost his own life. This disciple was brought up by himself, and his relationship was as close as that of father and son. Now that Chen died, Lu Yixin felt like someone had ripped out a piece of his heart. Out of resentment, he fought hard to lose his dignity as the leader of the section. Lily must also be killed on the spot. Revenge for Chen. Even though Lily was still in the nascent soul stage, she had already fought 3 times in a row and had just received a full blow equivalent to that of a monk in the middle nascent soul stage, even though she had the ability to reach heaven. Now that she had very little mana left, it would be easy for him to kill her. Lu Yixin felt a chill in his heart. At this time, he was already sure that he would never leave any chance of life for Lily. It's a pity that I didn't know that keeping Li Beihe here would bring disaster to me today. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have accepted her as my disciple and left her to fend for herself instead of accepting Li Beihe for some false fame and some benefits. Disciple, would I not be in the trouble I am in now? Even his beloved apprentice was included in the compensation? The Li family and his wife died fighting for the sect that day. According to the sect's regulations, there will be certain compensation for such disciples. The higher the parent's status and cultivation level, the more things they will give. When the Li family and his wife died that day, Lu Yixin was greedy. For those materials and elixirs, he accepted Li Beihe as his registered disciple. According to the rules in the world of immortal cultivation, the master has the first right to choose these things that belong to the disciple. He can take about 2/3 of the sect's compensation to the disciple. In order to get those materials, he accepted Li Beihe as his disciple and intercepted all the materials. At that time, Li Beihe was small and weak, and did not know these things. Therefore, after he kept things in the dark, due to his status as the sect leader, no one dared to speak against him. Many ordinary disciples did not know these reasons. He accepted this named disciple, obtained the materials, and used all the materials and magic pills to cultivate his beloved disciple. Sure enough, Chen lived up to his expectations. With these resources, his cultivation was extremely fast. He accepted Lily was a registered disciple and ignored her. Lu Yixin really didn't expect that the advantage he took 100 years ago would be paid back at 1,000 times the price 100 years later. He robbed Li Beihe's resources and used them on Chen, but now Chen died in Lily's hands. The most precious golden elixir left by the Li family back then, even after Chen swallowed it, he couldn't escape at all. Passing Lily's poisonous hand. As for the magic weapon materials, etc., the hard work he had spent on Chen over the years and the 8 machine puppet beasts had already been offset 1,000 times. He had spent so much in his life to cultivate the disciples he regarded as his sons. Now that it was destroyed in Lily's hands, even if Lu Yixin was calm, he couldn't help but go crazy at this time. Brother Lu. The people around him were shocked when they saw such a scene. Lu Yixin had summoned the magic weapon from his body. When the long sword slashed at Lily, everyone thought that Lily was when she couldn't dodge. The black dots that had just attached to her chest and withstood the fatal blow from the machine puppet beast started to fly again. Some purple wasps died from the machine puppet beast's blow, but the remaining 20 or so purple bees still survived, and these spiritual bees appeared quietly behind Lu Yixin. You evildoer, suffer death. Lu Yixin's ferocious face was getting closer and closer to Lily. The sword formation he practiced was the same as Chen's, but Lu Yixin's cultivation level was much higher than Chen's, so the sword formation was divided into 72 small swords. The 72 small swords were spinning in the air, forming a circle and surrounding Lily. The sword tips were pointed in the direction of Lily. Lu Yixin was big when he yelled the word kill, the lingering sound of the word had not yet completely faded. At this time, Lily patted the spirit beast bag on her waist and shouted, Go. A purple bee that looked similar to the spirit bee just now, but was much larger, flew out of the spirit beast bag and flew towards Lu Yishan at an extremely fast speed. Hiss. Seeing such a scene, the people around them couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, and someone shouted, "Purple gold king bee." Although the purple gold king bee is rare in the Xinglan Sea, it is not impossible. However, for thousands of years, no one has ever discovered that a disciple of the sword sect who was not well known in the past has become a true king bee. Reaching the nascent soul stage, he even refined a purple gold king bee. How shocking this is! Thinking of the black spots that were shot down in the battle just now, everyone's attention was only on Lily's battle with others. It was only then that they realized that they should be a group of purple gold king bees. Being able to withstand a powerful blow from the mid-stage nascent soul, one can imagine that this group of purple bees must be quite powerful. I originally thought that Lily would definitely die in this battle, but I didn't expect that she would surprise people one after another. When Lu Yishan saw the purple golden bee dynasty flying towards him, he naturally recognized the spirit insect immediately. The insect's wings were spread half a foot across its body, and it came at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, this insect could only become a queen bee, and its own strength was already yuanying. When he was so frightened and wanted to hide again, the queen bee had already hissed, and those sharp tentacles easily cut through his body protecting aura and caught him in the face. The purple bees themselves are highly poisonous, especially the poison of the queen bee, which is difficult to remove. Once a monk is poisoned by this poison, even a monk of the same level of strength will immediately lose half of his life. Lu Yishan made a quick decision and subconsciously prepared to abandon his skin. A lavender nascent soul flew out from above his head. He glanced at Lily with some resentment, and when he turned around and was about to run away, Lily had already sneered. With a sound, the swarm of bees that she had ordered to wait behind for a long time immediately flapped their wings and swarmed up when they saw Lu Yishan's nascent soul. Ah! Lu Yishan's nascent soul Leng Hui bumped into the swarm of purple bees. The group of purple bees immediately clung to his nascent soul like maggots attached to their bones. The leader of the queen bee even pounced on it. He went up and began to swallow the spiritual power of yuanying in big mouthfuls. Lu Yishan's yuanying screamed in agony, but after a moment, there was no more sound. The monk's flesh and blood nascent soul and cultivation were a great source of nourishment. A swarm of purple bees devoured Lu Yishan's nascent soul and skin, then began to stagger and flew into her spirit beast bag under Lily's instructions. Originally, Lu Yishan was not so easy to deal with, but first he was deeply hurt by the death of his apprentice, and then he miscalculated Lily's strength. Lost his mind, he even rushed into the field impulsively, so that he used many methods to defeat Lily. Before they could use it, they died at the hands of the swarm. If he had been prepared, even if he was defeated today, it would not be impossible to escape. However, precisely because he did not expect that Lily would also have a trump card in his hand, he ended up with a single mistake, and everything was lost. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 865. After watching this series of battles, everyone couldn't recover for a long time. Lily sat cross-legged in the field and swallowed a few pills to restore her spiritual power. For a while, no one dared to compete with her again. Today's battle is destined to make her famous in Xinglan Sea at an extremely fast speed. She fought several people in a row, won 2 competitions, killed a half-step nascent soul monk with extraordinary skills, and even killed the master of the sword section. Lu Yishan was also killed, and Lily was now promoted to 50 disciples, so naturally no one had any objections. Although Behi killed 2 monks during the competition, his practice was originally against the will of heaven, and even when he died, his skills were inferior to others. In addition, today it was obviously Luo Chen who showed his murderous intention first, but he failed to succeed in the end and died. Not to mention, it also cost Lu Yishan his life. Although Liu Yixin is the leader of a sect, everyone saw that he attacked Lily first. Now that he is dead, the sword sect is just a small sect, so naturally no one is willing to offend two dead people. He was a powerful monk and owned a spirit insect that was as powerful as the nascent soul stage. Therefore, the various sects did not mention Liu Yixin again and covered it up as a private matter within the sword sect. Since then, many people have privately offered an olive branch to Lily, hoping to invite her to be a guest elder, but Lily has declined them all temporarily. No one in the sword sect dared to mention revenge against Lily, but Chen Wantang wanted to take revenge on Lily several times. 3 months ago, Luo Chen was severely injured by Lily, and almost destroyed the magic weapon that connected his mind. The reason why he recovered so quickly was because after that, Liu Yixin arranged for Luo Chen and Chen Wantang to become Taoist couples, and it was with the power of dual cultivation that Luo Chen's cultivation realm was stabilized. Now both husband and master died in Lily's hands at the same time. Chen Wantang was naturally unwilling. She wanted to seek revenge from Lily several times, but because of her low strength, she was naturally no match for Lily. After losing Liu Yixin, a monk in the nascent soul stage as his backer, the sword sect, which was originally weak in strength, was even more depressed. The sword sect was torn into pieces. As the only surviving direct disciple of Liu Yixin, Chen Wantang was supposed to inherit the position of the leader of the sword section, but her strength is low, and her reputation and character cannot convince the public. Therefore, it is naturally impossible for Jianzong to hand over the position of leader to such a person. On the contrary, it is because of Chen Wantang's repeated provocations of Lily that the people of Jianzong are very afraid. I am deeply afraid that she will anger Lily and bring disaster to the sword sect. Although everyone in the sword sect affectionately called her little junior sister in the past, Liu Yixin died. Everyone pushed back. For the sake of their own safety, Jianzong couldn't make good friends with Lily, a great monk in the nascent soul stage. They definitely didn't dare to let Chen Wantang offend her. Therefore, Chen Wantang's act of seeking revenge made people in Jianzong quickly. The decision was made to abolish her cultivation and drive her out of the sword sect. Lily hasn't caused any trouble to Chen Wantang yet. Chen Wantang has been exiled from the world of immortality, and no one has seen her since. After the competition, the 50 selected disciples entered the secret realm. When a group of disciples came out of the secret realm half a year later, Lily was not among this group of people. After 100 years of war between good and evil, Zhongyan became famous all over the world. The two paths of good and evil still maintain a relative balance. The sword sect at that time was also divided into 4 sects: Southeast, Northwest, and Northwest. Its strength has changed from the second-rate sect at the beginning. All of a sudden, they became the smallest clan. But Lily, the daughter of the 2 elders of the sword sect who once owned a swarm of purple gold king bees and killed the leader of the sword sect, has disappeared. It was rumored that she had found a way to the upper world. She has left the Xinglan Sea territory, and some people once said that she stayed in the ruins of the palace outside the territory. He didn't come out again, and everyone had different opinions. In Leiyin Temple, a thin-faced monk looked at the indifferent young man sitting cross-legged on the futon, and couldn't help but ask, "Yanur, have you thought about it? If you don't get tonsured, you can protect Leiyin Temple as my disciple, and you can find a partner for dual cultivation. If you don't enter Leiyin Temple, you are not restricted by temple rules, and it will not harm your practice." When the young man who was sitting quietly heard this, he just nodded slightly and then closed his eyes. When Master Nyan put his hand on the top of his head, he could feel his black hair falling down. With each strand of hair falling, he seemed to vaguely remember something. He couldn't remember exactly how he saved her in the first place. He seemed to have forgotten a little about what happened before Zhongyan established his foundation, including how he became a disciple of Nyan and where Zhongyan was from. When he really woke up, who was he? When Jianzong's little junior sister named Lily reached out to grab him and wanted to give him the pill, he seemed to be waking up from a dream. Zonyan even had a vague feeling that he seemed to have been sealed before, and it was not until that moment that he was truly unsealed and became his true self. She was the one who could open his seal. He practiced hard and looked for medicinal materials for her. Master Nyan in Laiyan Temple once joked that he was raising a little daughter-in-law. In fact, he really thought that way. He raised his little junior sister as his own little daughter-in-law. He felt that after he is strong enough, he can ask her to practice dual cultivation, and from then on guard Laiyan Temple, complete Nyan's instructions, fulfill some of his wishes, and protect the temple for him for thousands of years in return for his kindness. Later in his practice, Zonyan no longer cared much about many things. Later in his Kingxinju practice, he had almost no mood swings. However, the thought that caught her hand and touched her at the beginning, until now, he has never forgotten it. It's a pity that he wants it, but she doesn't want it. He planted the seeds, but she doesn't want the results. He kept waiting where he was, but unfortunately he showed the wrong intention from the beginning. In Zonyan's closed eyes, the last glimmer of light went cold. When all his hair fell down, something broke in his heart and he clasped his hands together. Senior brother saved my life. I still don't know what to call him, he remembered what she had said. At that time, the voice had been ringing in his ears for 100 years. If he had known that it would end like this, right? Shouldn't he have let her touch his hand in the first place? Zonyan opened his eyes, a pair of green eyes like two deep wells. His eyes fell on his clasped hands, his expression was holy and pure. The white monk's robe made his palms white and slender. The hands that had an inexplicable feeling when she touched them now looked more moist and beautiful against the white monk's robe, but he still remembered the warmth. The fishy smell filled the feeling in his hands. He remembered the way she held his hand back then, and now that he thought about it, he still liked her so much that he wished he could hide her and let her belong to him only. The hair on the top of her head has fallen out. In fact, whether or not to lose her hair is just a formality for Zonyan, but he remembered that she had asked himself that year, if she had not lost her hair yet, did she not officially become a monk and become a disciple of Laiyan Temple? Now that I think about it, the scene is still vivid and interesting. If time could go over again, if he had known it would end like this, Zonyan felt that he might still choose to meet her again, as if he did not regret meeting her, but when he did it again, he might use other methods. Just a means. When Master Nyan finished ordaining Zonyan, he looked at this disciple who had always been indifferent, and smiled slightly. He didn't know what he thought of, and his eyebrows seemed to soften. When Lily came out of the mission this time, she did not return to the starry sky immediately. Her soul even wandered around for a long time as if she had nowhere to go. This abnormal situation has never happened again since she completed the mission for Li Yangzi, which made her heart a little heavy. She originally thought that she could receive the plot and even complete tasks normally in this mission to the world of immortality. She originally thought that Li Yangzi would be fine, but why didn't she appear in the starry sky at this moment? Could it be that after entering the mission, the starry sky was destroyed by those two weird intruders? At this time, she was worried about Li Yangzi's safety, and she also felt that her current situation was very difficult. It was dark all around, and she felt uncomfortable not knowing where she was. Moreover, she vaguely felt that if she continued like this, her spirit seemed to be weakening. Lily forced herself to calm down, and began to wonder if her mission was not completed. She really had no choice but to die in this mission. Due to the special nature of this mission, Lily did not dare to die at the beginning. The reason why she worked hard to improve her strength in the early stage was that she hoped that she could delay the mission for a while. She could not help Li Yangzi at the moment, but she tried not to cause trouble for him. Before things became clear, she originally wanted to live longer in the mission plot. If Li Yangzi was still alive, he would definitely try his best to find her. That's why she practiced hard, and even after completing the great competition, she and the 50 disciples entered the ruins of the palace outside the territory to look for opportunities, hoping to find some spiritual herbs, medicinal materials, magic weapons, etc. that could break through the middle stage of nascent soul cultivation. After entering the palace, she was most familiar with Zonyan, so the two actually walked together at first. Zonyan was kind to her, and she even felt an inexplicable intimacy with Zonyan. She instinctively felt that if the two of them were together, Zonyan would never be able to monopolize what he found. When they stayed in the ruins for more than 5 months, the two of them had encountered opponents. However, because both of them had cultivation levels above nascent soul, plus the lily also has a queen bee who is above the nascent soul stage, so when the two of them join forces, they have extraordinary strength, and no one dares to provoke them easily. In the ruins, Lily found many medicinal materials that could be taken during the Yuanying period and an ancient elixir recipe. Zonyan did not fight with her. He even asked for almost nothing along the way. Lily felt that something was not right. When Zonyan wanted to give him a share of the harvest, Zonyan refused. He said that after going out, the two of them will always cultivate together. What she has is the same as what he has. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 866. At that moment, Lily was so surprised when she heard Zonyan say this. Zonyan seemed ruthless and desireless. Lily had doubted at first whether he was trying to trick her, but there were all kinds of possibilities. I have passed it, but I have never thought about the issue of Zonyan's dual cultivation. In the plot, he is a monk, and he is the abbot of Laiyan Temple after being tonsured. Although he still has long hair now, in the plot, after the battle between good and evil, he was ordained, and coupled with his usual behavior, Lily had always regarded him as a monk and never thought about anything else. When Zonyan suggested that the two of them were going to practice dual cultivation, she couldn't believe her ears. At first, I thought Zonyan was just joking, but he was very serious. He seemed to lack all emotions and desires, and said calmly that the two of them would be together for the rest of their lives. If Li Yangzi was still here, and if she was just a skin, after she had completed the original owner's wish mission, it would have been nothing if she had promised Zonyan Zhuangziu to survive for a while longer. After all, if Li Yangzi was here, he would help her. But just because Li Yangzi was not here, and since she had someone in mind, Lily was unwilling to have anything to do with the characters in the plot. She rejected Zonyan's question, but she really didn't expect that such a calm and elegant person, who had helped her and taken care of her after she entered the mission, would hear her refusal and unwilling to during the double cultivation. His eyes suddenly turned cold. In the end, Lily was no match for Zonyan. She once thought that she had a swarm of purple bees, equivalent to 2 nascent soul stage monks. She originally thought that she just couldn't beat Zonyan. You should be able to escape, but unfortunately the plot says that Zonyan's strength is only in the early stage of Yuanying, but that's not true. He has already entered the middle stage of Yuanying, and the 6-pole true body of Laiyan Temple secret method has been cultivated to the end, so he is originally focusing on cultivating his body and mind. A swarm of purple bees couldn't get close to him, but were defeated by him. When Lily thought of this, a wry smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. This mission was not completed if judged this way, but she had tried her best. Without being in the starry sky, her spirit seemed to be gradually dissipating, as if she would disappear soon, and Lily's heart slowly calmed down. Not willing to wait for death like this, she tried hard to sense the existence of the stars and think of Li Yangzi, but a huge suction force suddenly came. When she was dizzy, her body was sucked into a familiar place. When she opened her eyes, she saw the place above her head. A piece of familiar starry sky. Lily bit her lip tightly, keeping her hands clenched in fists. Only then did he relax. Although she had been wandering outside the starry sky for a while, the feeling just now was really heart-wrenching. She opened her mouth wide and took a few breaths, and then the feeling as if her soul was shaking was dissipated. Dots of light all around flooded into her body, and she felt slowly becoming comfortable. The starry sky above her head that had been scratched by two strange intruders had long since disappeared, but the power of the stars on the top of the starry sky seemed to be much darker. Lily thought of the little starlight that had just poured into her body. A guess came to mind. Maybe these starlights are what keep her soul alive, if she can't complete the task. Now that Li Yangzi is gone, she will be lost outside the mission world and gradually disappear just like the previous situation. Only after completing the mission and returning to this place can she survive with the nourishment of these light points of ability. But these are just her speculations now. Li Yangzi was not here. Lily sat in silence for a while, and her information was displayed in the starry sky. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 87, out of 100. Appearance, 92, out of 100. Physical strength, 77, 100 full points. Force, 78, out of 100 points. Spirit, 82, out of 100. Reputation, 33, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Heaven and Earth Gate Tao Te Ching, Southern Gu Technique, Star Body Training Technique. Specialties, Advanced Cooking Skills, Advanced Acting Skills, 5 Elements, and Bagua, slightly dabbled in, B Control Skills. Charisma, 65, out of 100. Mark, Royal True Dragon Spirit. Judging from the attribute values displayed at this time, this mission should be completed. The force value column has increased by 2 points, but the reputation value has dropped a bit. She should have killed Lu Yi, the leader of the sword sect, with her Shen was the reason why many people in the sword sect were offended and resented. However, Lily did not care about the decrease in reputation. Instead, she saw that the B controlling technique was suddenly added to her special column. After going through many missions and it became increasingly difficult to increase the specialty, suddenly getting such a thing was a small surprise for Lily. Since the last time the starry sky was damaged, the recliners and other objects transformed by Li Yangzi's spiritual power have long since disappeared without a trace. When Lily was about to sit on the ground, the information above her head disappeared at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, the familiarity of the teleportation mission came back. Although Lily remembered how it felt like not being able to return to the starry sky after completing the mission, she had no choice but to face the situation. She gave a bitter smile, and her consciousness immediately fell into darkness. Young master, you and Yao Ji made an appointment to go out at the beginning of the SI hour. It is already the beginning of the Chen hour. A soft female voice rang in Lily's ear, and her voice was a little cautious. Lily had not been sleeping peacefully. When she was called by this voice, she quickly woke up alertly. When she heard the female voice calling her master, she subconsciously put her hand on her chest, which was flat, and she frowned. Then she pretended to be woken up and opened her eyes. A girl with her hair loosely tied behind her back and wearing dark gray clothes knelt down in front of the bed. She was trembling. When she felt the movement of the Lily on the bed, she knelt on the ground. After moving 2 steps and reaching out his hand to help Lily stand up, Lily shouted softly, "Roll." No, when the girl heard Lily's words, she shivered involuntarily. After she managed to calm down, she kowtowed again, knelt on the ground and moved back a few steps, and then she got up lightly. He bent down and quickly retreated. The surroundings were quiet. Lily glanced around, and saw several women standing beside the carved pillars, dressed like the girls who had exited before. When she saw them, their bodies began to tremble slightly involuntarily. Several men with green gauze hats on their heads, grey dark clothes with wide sleeves and narrow mouth, and green skirts around their waists, with their backs bowed, did not even dare to look directly into Lily's eyes. Although they tried to remain calm at this time, there was an indescribable atmosphere of tension filling the hall. This is a very simple and spacious palace. The walls are made of stacked bluestone bricks. There are many copper lamp decorations on it. However, because it is not night at this time, the oil lamps inside are not lit. In addition, there are many weapons and armors hanging, ranging from daggers and soft whips to bows, arrows, and machetes. The whole room smells of iron-blooded fighting, and the people around them are so silent that they dare not breathe. The fusion made the atmosphere in the palace seem more gloomy and cold. Although it was a blue sky and a bright day, the gloomy tones in the palace made the palace look very dark even when the sunlight came in. It seemed that no one dared to disturb her at this moment. These people seemed to be very afraid of the original owner. Lily was ready to accept the plot first. Although the girl who was kicked out by him had mentioned that the original owner had an appointment with a person named Yao Ji to go out, but Lily didn't care about it. She closed her eyes, stretched out her hand to support her chin, and quickly it was like falling into a deep sleep. She did become a man again this time, and the background of this mission was quite similar to the Warring States period in history that Lily knew. The original owner Zhao Beihe was born in Xiangzhuang City, the capital of the Lu state. His father, Duke Jiniang, was originally one of the sons of Duke Wen of Jin. Duke Wen of Jin had 3 sons. In this era, the princes of various countries were on guard against each other. Duke Jiniang was the subordinate of Duke Wen of Jin. The most unpopular son, so when Jin and Lu formed an alliance, the then Duke of Jiniang went to Lu as a hostage. After arriving in the state of Lu, Duke Jiniang was unwilling to live his whole life as a hostage. Although he was a prince in name, once the relationship between Lu and Jin broke down, the Duke of Lu would be the first to take action on him. Under such circumstances, life safety could not be guaranteed. Therefore, Duke Yang of Jin pretended to be in a drunken dream to paralyze the people of Lu and reduce the suspicion of the other 2 brothers in Jin. On the other hand, he bribed the servants of Duke Wen of Jin who favored his concubine, secretly fawning over the favored concubine of Duke Wen of Jin, and after 10 years of planning, this unfavored hostage of the Lu state finally returned to the Jin state while his father was ignored all day long. But in the state of Lu, when Duke Jinyang was pretending to be romantic and happy, he did receive several beauties as gifts from the Duke of Lu. One of them, Lu Ji, was extremely favored by him. Although it was just for show, because of this beauty she was very charming, and she could sing tactfully to please people. Therefore, Duke Jiniang was quite sincere towards her at that time, and he usually favored her. After returning to China, Lu Ji was already pregnant. Unfortunately, Duke Jinyang was in a hurry when he returned home. The relationship between Jin and Lu was very tense at that time. Although Duke Wen of Jin wanted to take him back, Duke Wen of Lu might not be willing to let him go. At that time, Duke Jinyang sneaked out of Xiang. In Zhuangcheng, in order to paralyze the ears and eyes of everyone in the Lu state, he also left his beloved concubine Lu Ji in the Lu state. After Jin Yanggong escaped, he was appointed as the heir when he returned to Jin state. However, the people of Lu state were very angry because of Jin Yanggong's private escape. They thought that Jin state was too untrustworthy. In anger, Duke Lu state ordered the sealing of the Proton mansion, and ordered the entire city to search for Duke Jinyang's only heir. At that time, Lu Ji took her son and hid back to her natal family. When she was young, she was sold by her natal family to a wealthy man's house. After changing hands several times, she fell into the palace and was given to the Duke of Jinyang. She had lost contact with her natal family for a long time. No one knew which nobleman she had followed before, and she did not dare to show her face in public again. In order to prevent her son from being recognized, she raised the original owner as a girl when she was a child and named her Lily in an attempt to get away with it. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 867. Zhao Beihe had a very difficult childhood as a boy dressed as a woman. Her mother resented Duke Jinyang for using her as a bait, so she vented her anger on Zhao Beihe. He was obviously a boy, but he only dressed up as a girl in order to survive. His mother's natal family, all his brothers, looked down on him and bullied him everywhere. Therefore, Zhao Beihe's life was not easy during his childhood, but he was very tolerant and kept these humiliations firmly in his heart. Fortunately, Zhao Beihe inherited Lu Ji's beauty, and his disguise as a girl was not exposed. On the contrary, as he got older, his appearance became more and more beautiful. When she was 9 years old, Lu Ji's family saw that Zhao Beihe was really beautiful and had the same beauty as Lu Ji, so they intended to dedicate him to high-ranking officials as a family trick. At this time, Jin Wenong happened to pass away, and Jinyang the Duke was appointed as the heir by the emperor. He remembered the first drop of blood he had received, and then he began to send people back to the state of Lu to find Zhao Beihe and his son. Zhao Beihe also escaped the trap of Lu Ji's family trying to sacrifice him and returned to the state of Jin. It has been many years since Duke Jinyang returned to the kingdom of Jin. He has already had other favored concubines around him, and he also has several sons. Although Zhao Beihe is his first son, he did not grow up with him when he was a child, and his relationship is not deep. In addition, Lu Ji's old pearls were not as beautiful as before, so the mother and son naturally gradually fell out of favor. I don't know if it's because he was dressed as a daughter when he was young, and because Zhao Beihe has such a feminine name. He loves martial arts very much and likes to show off his courage and fight fiercely. And because of his childhood upbringing, he is extremely suspicious and has a moody and vicious personality. Duke Yang of Jin did not like him and criticized him for being narrow-minded. All evil will be repaid, and no one is a real man. When this comment fell into Zhao Beihe's ears, it made him even more gloomy. In addition, several younger brothers also made fun of him because of his name, and even looked down upon him when they learned that he was raised as a daughter in the state of Lu. Zhao Beihe's temper became even weirder. He was tall and powerful, and could pull 2 children. Stone Bao. At this time, people valued martial arts over literature. Although Jin Yanggong did not like his son's weird and violent temper, he admired his martial arts very much. He let Zhao Beihe go to the battlefield when he was young. Zhao Beihe made several military exploits, and soon found a place in the Jin kingdom. When everyone in Jin state was extremely afraid of Zhao Beihe. When Zhao Beihe was 17, a girl named Bai Yaoguang broke into his sight. The original owner of this girl was one of the slaves prepared for him by the Jin state. Bai Yaoguang acted boldly and neither humble nor overbearing. Zhao Beihe had a volatile temper and was extremely cruel. But she was not afraid. Instead, Lily Zhao gave her a whip. But she could stand like a proud snow-cold plum in the wind. This unique performance gradually attracted Zhao Lily's attention. He has a sensitive and nuanced personality. In fact, the more people are afraid of him, the more angry he feels and doesn't know how to vent. When he was a child, he was always bullied, so he could only make himself stronger. Make others afraid, as if they will not be harmed. Such people have a fatal flaw in their general psychology. Once they become emotional, they are doomed. After discovering the difference between Bai Yaoguang, Zhao Beihe gradually noticed this girl. She seemed to be a few years older than Zhao Beihe. She had random thoughts and an extremely unconventional and interesting personality. Sometimes the thoughts in her mind were so naive and stupid that they could make Zhao Lily laugh. She often committed the following crimes, and did not treat Zhao Beihe as a prince, and kept shouting that the prince broke the law and was guilty of the same crime as the common people. She often stared at him in a daze without saying anything, and teased him from time to time. If Zhao Bei really wanted to marry her, she hurriedly avoided, and did this several times, which made Zhao Lili want to stop. However, under these foolish behaviors, her occasional innocence, kindness, and righteousness touched Zhao Lili's heart. Zhao Lili did not love her. That's it, one love is deep affection. In the process of getting along, Zhao Bei became more and more fond of Bai Yaoguang, and even had the idea of taking her as a concubine. Bai Yaoguang's origin is unknown, but unfortunately, this person is very courageous. He does not want to be a concubine, and he does not bother to climb into the bed of Zhao Bei, a young master. He also declares that if he wants to marry her, he will only accept her as his wife, and he will only marry her for the rest of his life. A pair of people, one more person is not enough. Zhao Bei was so overwhelmed by love that he disobeyed Duke Jinyang for the first time in his life and planned to marry her, regardless of Bai Yaoguang's status as a slave. On the other hand, Bai Yaoguang didn't know why, but her words, actions, personality, and behavior were incompatible with the person at that time. She had a carefree personality and made friends easily. From the officials to the palace servants, she interacted with everyone on an equal footing and was willing to help others. Zhao Bei fell in love with her and stopped letting her do anything. She was idle all day long, wandering around the palace and outside the palace, so she met Zhao Suyang, one of Zhao Bei's half-brothers. The two became happy friends, and Zhao Suyang also slowly fell in love with her. Zhao Bei was unaware of all this at first. After falling in love with Bai Yaoguang, he checked Bai Yaoguang's identity and found that her origins were unknown. According to the waiter who had captured her as a slave, she fell from the sky inexplicably and was lying in the middle of the road. Dressed in strange clothes, with weird half-long hair, and crazy. When asked about the time and year, the waiter began to think that she was crazy, remembering that Zhao Bei was short of people to serve in the palace, and he had a bad temper. He killed many slaves, and his servants were always worried about who should serve him. So when he saw that the girl was helpless, he marked her as a slave and sent her to the palace. After discovering that Bai Yaoguang was born, Zhao Bei was keenly aware of Bai Yaoguang's weirdness. Just because of the strange clothes she dropped from the sky, if anyone knew about it, she would be executed as a demon. In order to prevent her from ending up like that, Zhao Bei would kill her. The servants and others were all killed. It's just that things can't be ruled out. Others have seen the scene of Bai Yaoguang falling from the sky that day, and reported it to Jinyang Gong. Upon hearing this, Jinyang Gong really had murderous intentions towards Bai Yaoguang, in order to save the life of his sweetheart. Zhao Bei rebelled and became the new Duke of Jin. However, when he happily thought that he had removed all obstacles and could marry Bai Yaoguang disappointedly told him that everything he had done had already been done. No. She claimed that she liked the innocent, kind-hearted, and injured Zhao Bei back then, not Jin Xingong now, and that she had already fallen in love with him during her relationship with the young master Su Yang. If Zhao Bei wanted to get her, you can only get her body, but not her heart. Her heart will always belong to young master Su Yang. She was going through life and death for Bai Yaoguang, and for fear of her life, she did a daring business with her own head. However, she secretly got involved with her half-brother, and said that she was a stranger to him now. If he wanted to get her body, he got it by force regardless of her wishes. If it wasn't for her heart, why would he go through such a big circle? During the time he spent with her, although he had some plans, his original intention was mostly for her life. He gained the Jin kingdom for her. Unexpectedly, he gained the country but lost the beauty in the end. After ascending to the throne, Zhao Bei changed his name to Xin. Because he had been hurt by Bai Yaoguang, he wanted to win Bai Yaoguang's heart, but could not bear to hurt her life. He tried to please her many times but got no response, and in the end he could only be imprisoned. Young Master Su Yang, but Bai Yaoguang not only became more and more indifferent to him, but was willing to share joys and sorrows for young Master Su Yang. Zhao Beihe was left with the reputation of a tyrant. However, because he was not justified in seizing the throne that day, several of his half-brothers did not obey him. After he ascended the throne, they fled the Jin state and borrowed troops from Lu and other countries, and finally besieged the Jin state. Jin was divided, and Zhao Beihe committed suicide and died. Without Zhao Beihe's imprisonment, Zhao Suyang and Bai Yaoguang went into seclusion hand in hand. The plot was very simple. When Lily finished receiving the plot, she opened her eyes and sighed slightly. The original owner was disguised as a woman when he was a child, hiding his face. When he grew up, he finally returned to his father, Duke Jiniang. However, due to the estrangement between father and son, and the fact that Duke Jiniang was regarded as the general of Zhao state at that time, Lily and her son escaped on their own as bait-like existences, which cast a huge shadow on Zhao Lily during his childhood, thus developing his temperamental and extremely wary character. In addition, Lu Ji was angry with him back then and had been beaten and scolded since childhood. Therefore, for Zhao Beihe, he longed for love but also instinctively despised this thing. He was a very contradictory character. When Bai Yaoguang saw Zhao Beihe for the first time that day, he was shocked that he inherited Yu Luyi's extraordinary handsome appearance, so he was very ambiguous about his actions, and came up with several ways to actively seduce him, and even made a lot of trouble for this. It was a joke that successfully attracted Zhao Beihe's attention. In the end, even some of Bai Yaoguang's actions because of her greed for her beauty became a misunderstanding in Zhao Beihe's eyes that she was very infatuated with him. She had never been treated like this. When the servants were more afraid of Zhao Beihe looked at Bai Yaoguang with special eyes, and finally fell in love with her. This mission is a bit special. The original owner died of rape. He was almost at the point of despair. He didn't know what to do. He didn't seem to have any intention of revenge on Bai Yaoguang. Even after Lily received the plot, he didn't know what to do. At that time, she didn't even feel Zhao Beihe's wish for a moment. He seemed like he didn't know what to do. He seemed a little unwilling to Bai Yaoguang, but the original owner didn't want to get Bai Yaoguang. How strong, even if Zhao Beihe wanted to take action later in the plot, he would have gotten it long ago based on his ability, but until he died in the end, the result was that Zhao Suyang and Bai Yaoguang were just living in seclusion. Generally speaking, what troubles Lily the most is when she encounters a task like the original owner. She doesn't know what to do, and the difficulty of the task will be greatly increased. But this time the situation is different. Lily has become a man. If the original owner is really determined to get Bai Yaoguang's love, but if he wants to get Bai Yaoguang's person, Lily doesn't know how she will face this task. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 868. At this time, the plot has progressed to the point where Bai Yaoguang has appeared in front of Zhao Beihe many times, and has repeatedly acted stupidly to attract his attention. He already has some feelings for Bai Yaoguang at this time, but Zhao Beihe himself does not know it. His temper was originally not good, but he was very tolerant of Bai Yaoguang, and was even willing to accompany her to do silly things several times. The original owner remembered every scene with Bai Yaoguang firmly. This morning, Zhao Beihe made an appointment with Bai Yaoguang to accompany her for a walk. Bai Yaoguang seemed to be very curious about everything in this era and would reach out and touch everything. Peng, and in Zhao Beihe's view, she would always try her best to buy some worthless things and hide them as treasures. This behavior attracted Zhao Beihe's favor, and she thought Bai Yaoguang was an easy to satisfy and happy person. A good girl who is not greedy, so she likes her more. This time the two of them went out. It was not the first time they went out. It was this time that they even caused some trouble for the original owner. In the end, the original owner was suppressed by Bai Yaoguang. Thinking of this, Lily sneered. After receiving the plot, the original owner couldn't figure out where Bai Yaoguang came from, but Lily already knew it. Suddenly and inexplicably appeared in this world, wearing strange clothes, and she was still in her 20s and unmarried. This was rare in ancient times, not to mention her so-called equality of all, princes breaking the law and covering the people. The idea of common guilt is unique to modern people. This is still the period of slavery society. Who will tell people about the legal system? At this time, people's classes were clearly differentiated. The real prince's crime of breaking the law was the same as covering the people. It was just a beautiful idea in the imagination of later generations. Since Bai Yaoguang comes from modern times, the original owner believes that she is not greedy for money. Her simple and innocent character that could make her happy with some worthless small items is naturally fake. It is estimated that things that are worthless in the eyes of the original owner are very valuable in the eyes of Bai Yaoguang, who has just traveled to ancient times. It's antique. That's why she spent money to collect so many things, and moved them back to her room every time and hid them. Maybe she was still thinking about going back to ancient times and falling in love with a beautiful man, and she could collect them. A bunch of ancient cultural relics are brought back to modern times to make a fortune. Young master. Yao Ji has come back. A few small footsteps sounded outside, as if they were afraid of disturbing Lily and being punished. In the past, Zhao Lily's moody personality made the people in the young master's mansion very afraid of him, for fear that he might accidentally offend him and be whipped. According to the laws of the Jin state, slaves were generally obtained from defeated prisoners of war plundered by other countries. They were part of the owner's family property and could be bought and sold. But in the matter of life and death, if the master is displeased, he will end up in a miserable state. Just wrap him up in a straw mat and throw it away. Zhao Beihe used to hit people when he was in a bad mood. Even if he was injured, he deserved to be beaten to death. Bai Yaoguang had seen him hit people several times. Angry and dissatisfied, she spoke up for others, so after a few times she easily bought the hearts of many slaves, which also made the people in the palace more afraid of Zhao Beihe. After the original owner took a fancy to Bai Yaoguang, he ordered the people around him to report to him every time there was any movement from Bai Yaoguang. Before Lily entered the mission, she unusually did not accompany Bai Yaoguang out. This situation had already made the servants feel a little uneasy. However, due to Zhao Beihe's previous instructions, the servants still had the courage to come and report the news about Bai Yaoguang. Bai Yaoguang has come back. This time she went out and caused a trouble and came back. Zhao Beihe in the plot also went out with her. But before leaving the house, someone was sent to investigate her origins. The servant happened to have an idea at that time and found the waiter who caught her mark at that time, so Zhao Beihe left for a while. Bai Yaoguang's character. She was not a submissive and obedient person at all, so after finding out that Lily Zhao could not accompany her, she went out alone and caused trouble when she came back. When Lily Zhao knew about this incident at the time, she suppressed it forcefully without even thinking about it. Although the matter was resolved later, this incident caused a lot of trouble for Zhao Beihe. However, at that time, he was deeply in love but did not know it. Coupled with his personality, he was not aware of this incident. The consequences of small things. Bai Yaoguang has returned by now, and within half an hour at most, the people complaining will follow. Lily thought of this, turned over and sat up, and gave a cold command. "Change your clothes for me." The girl who came to reply was afraid of offending her, and her voice was trembling when she replied. At this time, she breathed a sigh of relief when she heard Lily stabbing someone with a knife without turning her face. The wooden-like waiter hurriedly took out his clothes and came forward, combing Lily's hair and dressing her. The girl who answered the question knelt at the door respectfully. After Lily had finished packing, she asked. When Yaoji returned home, did she come back alone? The girl had known that Lily Zhao was very concerned about the original owner's affairs, and seemed to have expected that Lily would ask this question, so she was prepared. It was young Master Yang who sent Yaoji back. Young Master Yang is Zhao Suyang. He is the son of Mrs. Han Zhang, the most beloved wife of Duke Jin Yang. He is also the most likely young master in the Jin kingdom to succeed Duke Jin Yang. On that day, Duke Jin Yang was away as a hostage, but he knew that his father's favorite son had left. Ji's path made him feel comfortable, and now it's his turn to follow his father's path. When Zhao Suyang was born, Han Zhang cried in front of Duke Jin Yang. She was originally the daughter of Duke Jin Yang. She was half the age of Duke Jin Yang. She was extremely beautiful, smart, and scheming. When she gave birth to her son, she was deeply afraid. Since then, the mother and son were weak. They wanted to coax Duke Jin Yang to name Zhao Suyang as his heir. Duke Jin Yang was confused for a while, so when he named his son, he did not have any taboo about the character Yang when he was named, but specifically named his son Suyang, which shows how favored he is. In the Jin Palace, Zhao Suyang was pampered since he was a child, almost getting wind and rain, which developed his somewhat naive and ambitious character. He did not get along with the other young masters, especially when Zhao Beihe suddenly changed from the eldest brother who returned from the Lu kingdom was not pleasing to the eye. When the two of them fought for Bai Yaoguang in the later stage, there was almost no quarrel. Unfortunately, Zhao Suyang was too favored and did not suffer much, so he was finally defeated by Zhao Beihe. Although he was defeated, he was still wrong, because he took away the woman Zhao Beihe liked most. Because of his childhood experiences, Zhao Beihe originally had very little trust in women, but he was the only one who opened his heart to Bai Yaoguang, and even competed for the position of Duke of the country. In order to save Bai Yaoguang's life, Zhao Suyang lost the throne but got the beauty. In the plot, Zhao Beihe hated him to the core, but she dared not kill him because of Bai Yaoguang's relationship. In the end, she only imprisoned him and set herself on fire. And died. Later in the plot, Bai Yaoguang and Zhao Suyang did not know each other before, and they could be said to be a pair of happy enemies. When Zhao Beihe fought for the throne for Bai Yaoguang and neglected to accompany her, Bai Yaoguang and Zhao Suyang got together almost every day in the later stages. The two have been in love for a long time, and Zhao Beihe had some feelings for her at first, but Bai Yaoguang kept claiming that women are human beings and have the ability to make friends with beauties. Whenever Zhao Beihe was sometimes jealous, she felt that Zhao Beihe was too petty and would after losing his temper. Zhao Beihe didn't dare to say anything to her for a long time, just for fear of making her unhappy. He didn't expect that the two of them had known each other so early. Today, when Bai Yaoguang went out, it was Zhao Suyang who sent her back. Lily sneered and reached out to grab the jade handle pressed against the hem of Shen's clothes at her waist. After hearing this, she ordered. Yao Ji is not allowed to leave the house at will from now on. If she wants to leave the house in the future, she must repay this to me. Before that, Zhao Beihe had given instructions to the servants, saying that if Bai Yaji wanted to do something, the people in the palace would not have to restrain her, and she would be given priority in everything, including food, clothing, and jewelry. At this moment, Lily suddenly seemed to have turned her back. Bai Yaji was not allowed to go out again. The servants didn't know what Lily had in mind for a while. However, the original owner had always been moody and had an unstable personality. It was not like no one had done this repeatedly before, so the girl responded and hesitated. After a while he asked again. The food, clothing, jewelry, gold, etc. It's just a plaything. I used to be in a good mood, so I should reward her. From now on, she can just follow the slave regulations. She said that she should follow the general regulations, but slaves need to do things, and sometimes they also serve guests. In the past, Bai Yaoguang could walk freely in Zhao Beihe Palace, wandering around with nothing to do all day long, but no one dared to instruct her. Now the young master seemed to be disgusted with her, but thinking of Zhao Beihe's indulgence towards her in the past, the servant felt a little unsure. After just asking a few questions, the girl did not dare to ask any more questions, so she responded respectfully. Hurriedly bent over and stepped back. Zhao Beihe used to spend most of his time practicing riding and shooting skills when he had nothing to do. Since he met Bai Yaoguang, he gave her half of his time in the early stage, and the remaining half of his time in the later stage was spent on how to seize power. This time her son Beihe was not going anywhere. She asked someone to find some bamboo slips and silk books for her. After reading them for a while, the people who complained outside came right after them. The person who came in to report the news was a fair-faced and beardless waiter. As soon as he arrived, he told the story that someone outside had come to the prince's house to sue Bai Yaoji. The waiter's eyes were cunning and he had a flattering look on his face. Knowing that Zhao Beihe had been very fond of Bai Yaoji in the past, he couldn't help but offer his advice as soon as the matter was finished. "Young master, why don't you find someone to beat him out? If he dares to cause trouble, then..." After he finished speaking, he made a gesture of wiping his throat and smiled flatteringly. In this way, Yaoji can also avoid trouble. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 869. Zhao Beihe did this in the plot. When he heard that someone dared to make trouble with Bai Yaoguang, he became very impatient at the time. He also listened to others' suggestions and beat out the complainer. Who knew that the complainer was a disciple of Mr. Su Hong, a well-known scholar in the world. Although his family was poor, he was full of literary talent. After being humiliated that day, he was unwilling to be humiliated. Zhao Beihe had a ruthless personality and was ready to eradicate him when he knew that he was unwilling. The complainer fled to the state of Lu in embarrassment, and became an advisor to Duke Lu. Many years later, when Zhao Beihe ascended the throne, one of his half-brothers fled to Lu. His notoriety added to his reputation, which caused him to lose the support of the people, causing many commoners in Jin to be very dissatisfied with Zhao Beihe. Finally, when the princes borrowed troops to return to Jin, they were cheered by the people, and the Jin was divided equally among the countries, leaving Zhao Beihe alive. He was burned to death in the Jin palace, avenging his revenge on that day. At this time, Lily laughed when she heard the waiter's suggestion. The waiter only thought that she had adopted her opinion and narrowed her eyes with laughter. Without saying a word, Lily raised her hand and slapped him in the face. "Smoked it?" The waiter Leng Hu was slapped by Lily, and his body became unsteady. He turned half a circle on the spot, became dizzy and staggered, stepped on the hem of his own clothes with his foot, and caught his ankle with his other leg. He fell to the ground with a pop sound. Ever since Zhao Beihe returned to the Jin kingdom, she especially hated the fact that when she was in the Lu kingdom, she disguised herself as a woman and looked like a woman. Although she was a dignified young master of the Jin kingdom, she was almost given to him as a servant by Lu Ji's family. Practice more every day. He is an expert in archery, horse riding, and archery. His hands are strong enough to draw a bow with 2 stones, which shows his strong arm strength. After Lily mastered this body, her physical strength and force value increased. Not only was he no longer inferior to the original Zhao Beihe, but his strength was even superior to him. With this slap, the waiter's mouth was broken. His mouth and teeth were bleeding, but he didn't dare to shout out the pain. After falling down, he quickly got up and knelt on the ground. His body was like sieving chaff, and he didn't even dare to shout out a word of mercy. The original owner was always a man of uncertainty. Not only did he hit people while talking and laughing, but he also used weapons to take people's heads off their necks. At this moment, the waiter's heart was pounding like a drum. Half of his face was numb with pain, but he didn't dare to breathe. He lay on the ground quietly without making any sound. Lily stopped beside the waiter. When the people around saw her getting angry, they all hurriedly knelt down. When the silence was a little weird, Lily sneered. "What do you want me to do? Do you need to teach me?" The waiter originally wanted to please her, so he came up with the idea. If the original Lily Zhao heard this, she would be very happy, and then she might reward him for it, thinking that he had a good idea, but he didn't expect that today the fart hit the horse's leg, which made the ancestor feel unhappy. The waiter was afraid and cold, and did not dare to anger Lily. Deeply afraid that his life may not be saved. Faintly hating Bai Yao Guang in his heart, he shook his head hurriedly. "I don't dare. Master, spare your life. I will never do it again next time. If there's a next time, I'll move my tongue." After Lily said this, she straightened her clothes. When the waiter heard what she said, he breathed a sigh of relief. He tapped his forehead and waited until Lily took a few steps. Then he climbed up tremblingly, not even daring to wipe the sweat on his head. The clothes on his back were covered with cold sweat. It was soaked and clinging to his body, but at least his life was saved this time. The waiter's face showed the feeling of surviving a disaster, and he hurriedly followed him. Zhao Bei has a moody temperament. Just now, the waiter suggested that the man who came to complain be beaten out, but he didn't expect that he was beaten physically and mentally instead of trying to flatter him. No one could tell that Lily meant to see the man who complained. So Lily left her bedroom, and the man who came to complain had been invited into the young master's mansion and was waiting in the main hall. In the plot, the original owner never met this man at all. When he heard that someone was making trouble in front of his son's house, he immediately asked people to drive him away. It wasn't until a few years later when this man helped other young masters invade the Jin palace that he Zheng pointed at Zhao Bei and cursed the foolish king, and then told the truth about that year, and Zhao Bei learned who he was. Compared with the middle-aged man with a short beard and a gloomy face that I saw later, this man named Su Zhen is about 20 years old, with a medium build, wearing grey cloth, and his hair is scattered behind him. His hair showed that he was less than 20 years old, so he did not wear a crown and looked unattractive. He wore straw ropes on his feet, and his family seemed to be in a very difficult situation. When Lily led a group of people into the hall, Su Zhen stood in the hall neither humble nor arrogant, with an indignant look on her face. Just from the person's face, Lily could tell that Su Zhen was talented, but her temper was bound to be punished, and she was not a generous-minded person. She knelt down on the soft couch and waved her arms. Setting up a table and banquet for Sir Su Zhen was arrogant and arrogant. Although his family was poor, he relied on his talent. When Lily came in, even though he was facing the eldest son of Duke Jin Yang, he was dressed in shabby clothes, but he did not show any timidity. He originally thought he was a nobleman. People will definitely ridicule him. Su Zhen was even prepared in her heart, but she didn't expect that Lily would call him Mr. in the end, and even ask someone to move the desk for him. Something flashed in Su Zhen's eyes. Looking suspicious, he hesitated for a long time, then bowed his body, folded his hands over his head, and thanked me. "I wonder who you want to sue when you come to the door of my residence today." As soon as the table came, Su Zhen sat down. The waiter brought up the deer-mouth copper pot and poured wine into the cup. Su Zhen took a sip and drank it all. Lily watched him put down the cup and then asked. Su Zhen was angry at first, but when she entered the young master's house, she saw that Lily was not only not as fierce and terrifying as the rumors said, but also treated her as a guest, so she could no longer keep a sullen face. Then sighed and told what happened. "To be honest, young master, a certain family came from a poor family. When I was young, I was lucky enough to study under Mr. Su Hong, a great scholar of the time, and learn the art of kingship." When he said this, there was a hint of pride on his face. Su Hong, The influence of fame in this world is like that of a famous person like Zhongqing during the real warring states period. He traveled to various countries and served as prime minister in each of the three kingdoms. In the end, he succeeded and retired. If there were academic factions at this time, Su Hong could be said to be the most representative figure of legalism at this time. When everyone around heard that this unattractive Su Zhen was a disciple under the name of Su Hong, they were all shocked. Lily had known this, so she narrowed her eyes and said nothing. A good bird wants to choose a tree to live in, but it's a pity that a certain family came from a humble background. He was ugly and traveled to several countries. Everyone thought that a certain family was whimsical. When he returned to the Jin kingdom, he was already old and his mother was pushing him hard, so a marriage was arranged with a certain family, and the woman was about to be brought in, but was ruined by a person in the young master's house who called herself Baiji. Now that the mother is angry and heartbroken, once the marriage is over, how will a certain family continue to live in Jin dynasty in the future? The country is established, how can you, master, prepare for this? When Su Zhen finished speaking, she threw the three-legged tall cauldron wine cup in her hand on the ground, with a loud clang sound, and stood up. He stared at Lily and drank loudly. But a lowly maidservant is worthy of Sir being so angry. If Sir doesn't dislike her, she ruins your marriage. I will make the decision and give her to Sir as his wife. What do you think, Sir? After Lily finished speaking, Su Zhen was stunned for a moment and said nothing. Lily directly called for someone to bring Bai Yaoguang over. A group of waiters started to take care of him. Bai Yaoguang still refused to come over. When the waiter came to report, Lily sneered, kicked the desk over, and cursed. Useless thing. Originally, I summoned Yao Ji. Since Yao Ji refused to come, she should be killed. But seeing that I intended to promise her to Mr. Su, I temporarily spared her innocence. Drag her over, if you don't obey, you have to be careful about your legs. As soon as she said these words, a look of satisfaction flashed on Su Zhen's face, and the servants ran very fast, and in a short time, they really raped Bai Yaoguang. Pulled over. From far away in the main hall, you can hear a woman outside yelling, "Let me go. Don't touch me. I have legs and can walk on my own. If anyone dares to touch me again, don't blame me for being rude, got it?" She was full of energy and shouted loudly. When Su Zhen heard her voice in the palace, she initially listened to Lily's suggestion that Bai Yaoguang be given to her as his wife but did not object. Now when she heard her unruly and fierce words, her face changed. But he showed a bit of disgust. "Zhao Beihe. What do you mean? You agreed to go shopping with me today, but you didn't have time to forget it, but you still want to drag me here when I come back. Why do you think it's just because you are a young master? There is no such thing in the world. Has the king ordered me? I don't want to go out, I don't want to come, I don't want to come, why do you force me?" A girl wearing a pink wide-sleeved skirt rushed into the hall with heavy steps, pointed at Lily and shouted. He stood up and said, "It's okay now, you guys have seen me, I'm leaving." After saying that, she turned around and wanted to leave. Su Zhen frowned and said nothing. When Lily saw Bai Yaoguang, her eyebrows jumped up. This girl seemed to be quite old. For people who get married at the age of 13 or 14 at this time, she was at least 24 or 5 years old. But there is a bit of innocence and pride between the eyebrows, with a half-length hair hanging down behind him, and a bronze pendant on his forehead. At this time, his hands are crossed in front of his chest, and his face shows a provocative look. Ever since she met Zhao Beihe, she has always looked like this. When facing Zhao Beihe, she did not have the awe-inspiring aura that a woman should have at this time, and she was upright and brave, so she was particularly attracted to her and ignored Bai Yaoguang. Other things. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 870. At this moment, there were clearly people in the palace. Bai Yaoguang barged in without any regard for his superiority and opened his mouth to shout. He was also arrogant and called out Zhao Beihi's name directly. One can imagine what kind of person Zhao Beihi was in her heart in the past. Status. Lily had just kicked over the table, and a waiter brought it up again and filled her with wine. She reached out and rubbed the body of the glass. When Bai Yaoguang came in and shouted to finish, he turned around and left without a trace. The original owner put it in his heart and couldn't help but shout, "Absurd! Why are you shouting suddenly? You startled me." As soon as Lily finished speaking, Bai Yaoguang was more fierce than her and shouted back with a louder voice. "Baiji, Mr. Su said that you ruined his marriage, what do you have to say now?" Lily endured the annoyance in her heart. When Bai Yaoguang heard Lily's words, she turned her head and glanced at Su Zhen casually, and suddenly crossed her arms. The waist started to laugh. "Ha ha 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 ha. That's right. This guy named Su is ugly, and he wants to marry a girl. The girl already has a sweetheart, but she doesn't want to marry him. It's just that Su bullies others and wants to force her to marry him. Marry her without looking in the mirror to see if you are worthy of her. Of course I can't ignore it when something like this happens to me," she proudly told what happened after she went out today in front of her. It was said in front of everyone. This morning, Bai Yaoguang made an agreement with Zhao Beihi early in the morning, and Zhao Beihi wanted to go shopping with her. She had only been in this ancient world for a few months, and everything about this ancient time felt very fresh. In modern times, it was only natural for men to accompany their women when shopping. What's more, Gongzi has an eccentric temperament and a cold temper, but his appearance is extraordinary. With such a man by his side to accompany him around the streets, he treats everyone without any pretense. He has a cold appearance, but he is gentle and obedient to himself, and he has a noble family background, appearance, and figure. Bai Yaoguang felt like she was like the heroine in the novel she had read in her previous life. She had an extremely domineering man who would only treat her for the rest of his life. He was as cold as ice to others, but he only melted with her. Showing gentleness makes her feel psychologically superior. In modern times, her appearance is just average, and her family background is not outstanding. Many stinky men are picky about her. Therefore, at the age of 25, she had not had a boyfriend yet. Unexpectedly, one day when she was transported to ancient times for no apparent reason, she would have such an adventure. When Bai Bai made the appointment in the morning and went shopping, she was originally very excited. At this time, some earthen jars, utensils and stoneware that were not valuable in the eyes of the ancients would be worth millions in the modern world thousands of years from now. Things that tens of millions cannot even buy. She even thought about it. If she found a way back in the future, she would definitely take Lily Zhao back. Then her family would be talking about her parents who couldn't marry every day. See, she not only had a man, and a man who is far more handsome than any so-called celebrities in later generations, and he comes from ancient times, and he has strong muscles and a perfect figure, and a character like a loyal dog, and most importantly, by then she owned many antiques. I don't have to go to work and look at other people's faces for the rest of my life, and I can live happily for the rest of my life. Ever since she came to ancient times, the sweet dreams she had every day when she returned home, and the envious eyes of others would make her very happy. It was this kind of beautiful scene that made her very happy. It allowed her to erase the fear and anxiety of coming to this strange environment in ancient times, coupled with Zhao Lily's indulgence towards her. Bai Yaoguang gradually became more courageous because she had not encountered any dangerous things since time travel. This morning, Bai Yaoguang made an appointment with her but did not go out. This made her very unhappy. When she went out, she encountered young Master Su Yang. She met young Master Yang by chance a few days ago when she disguised herself as a man and mixed in with the guards around Zhao Beihe to enter the palace with him. She wanted to see what this so-called ancient palace was like. That brat saw through it at a glance. He knew she was a woman and pulled off the hat that tied her hair. Fortunately, she found an excuse to escape. Unexpectedly, this brat found out who she was and even came to the young master's house to block her. Recently, Zhao Beihe seemed to be, she was busy for some reason and often had no time to accompany her, so she slipped out of the house several times to play with Zhao Suyang. A few days ago, she saw a sad girl on the street. After asking about it, she found out that she was about to get married. But she already has a sweetheart, but it's a pity that her sweetheart is one of the prisoners captured by the Jin Kingdom. Her parents want her to marry someone else, but she refuses, but there is nothing she can do. After knowing this, Bai Yaoguang immediately decided to marry the couple. She and Gong Ziyang conspired to get some gold and give it to the girl, asking her to prepare to discuss it with her sweetheart when she went back. On the other hand, she decided to go out on her wedding day. Help these miserable couple. They had made an appointment a long time ago, and Bai Yaoguang hoped that Zhao Beihe could help him with this matter today. Unexpectedly, Zhao Beihe broke his promise and promised to accompany her out, but when the time came, he was nowhere to be seen. Bai Yaoguang was furious. She took the money and slipped out. As soon as she went out, she was caught by young Master Yang who was blocking her. Although she didn't want to ignore him, the two of them had helped Jinji after all, and they were old acquaintances. With Yang, someone paid the bill when eating, and someone picked up things while shopping, so she went out with young Master Yang. She first went to the girl's home, disguised herself as a girl, pretended to be a girl, and married into Suzhen's house in her place. Zhao Suyang helped arrange for the girl and the slave to escape from the Jin capital with gold. In order to punish Suzhen, a big bad guy who almost broke up someone else's lover, she made a big fuss in the Su family and disturbed the peace of the Su family. Then she laughed and thought that she had done something very great. After eating, drinking, and having enough fun, we returned to the young master's mansion. After hearing Bai Yaoguang's words, Suzhen was so angry that her face turned red and her neck was thick. This important event in his life was treated as child's play by this woman. Now he has become a laughing stock in the Su family, and his mother was so angry that she almost returned home. Go, I am not married yet, my wife has never visited the house, but she has a hat on her head. Bai Yaoguang, who had caused trouble, looked as if he had done something good and was a little proud. You toad wants to eat swan meat. If you are ugly, you must be self-aware. People don't want to marry you. There are no fragrant grasses in the world. Why should you fall in love with a flower unrequitedly? Brother, listen to my advice and find someone else who is willing to marry you. Go your people. Bai Yaoguang felt that what he did was not a shameful thing, so after finishing speaking, he yawned and glanced at Lily complainingly. Huh, you agreed to go shopping with me but you didn't go. You broke your promise and I'll ignore you from now on. Her words made Suzhen so angry that her lungs almost exploded. For a person like Suzhen, who has a low reputation, a poor family, and no outstanding appearance, it would be difficult to get a wife before accomplishing something big. After studying abroad for many years, his family thought that he was not doing his job properly and were extremely unhappy with him. Now that Bai Yaoguang had made a fuss and said such irritating words, he immediately had a gloomy look on his face, remembering what Bai Yaoguang said about another person who could help him. It was Gong Xiang who was running away from his wife before she got married. A bit of hatred arose in his heart, and he clenched his fists in his sleeves. Baiji, you ruined Mr. Su's marriage. Now I will marry you to him. I am the master of this marriage and will make it a smooth one for you. Lily saw Suzhen's face. saw Bai Yaoguang's face again, and suddenly laughed. As soon as she said these words, Bai Yaoguang was stunned for a while, and then came back to his senses after a long time, as if he had just realized what Lily said. Suzhen was not the ideal type of spouse she had imagined. She would not even look at a man like Suzhen in modern times, let alone in ancient times when there were many beautiful men. Even Zhao Suyang was far more handsome than Suzhen. Now Lily actually wanted to marry her off. She glanced at Lily in shock, and then couldn't help shouting loudly. "Are you crazy? Why should I marry him? What's more, who are you? Why do you care who I marry? My parents are not qualified to decide my marriage like this. I won't marry. If you want to marry, you can marry yourself." After she said that, she turned around and wanted to run away. Lily slapped her palm heavily on the table and shouted angrily, "How presumptuous! Stop her for me." Now that things have come to light, the young master's good intentions are clear to Zhen's heart. However, Zhen is really not happy to accept this strange woman, "So I'm leaving." Zhen originally didn't want to marry a woman like Bai Yaoguang, but now she still sees her in public. Humiliating himself made him even more furious. Now that he saw Lily, he saw that she was fair and sensible in her dealings. In addition, he now had someone he hated more in his heart, so naturally he didn't want to trouble Lily anymore, so he bowed just as Lily was about to leave. Lily suddenly stood up and waved. "Mr. Su, wait a minute. Baiji, do you really not want to marry Mr. Su? If you don't want to marry, you are a big-headed devil. If you want to marry, you must marry well enough. Then you will marry, and your whole family will marry." Bai Yaoguang has always had smooth sailing since she came to ancient times. In the past, although Zhao Beihe was not good to her, he obeyed his words, but he was able to satisfy her in most things and be humble to her. Bai Yaoguang thought he had some love for her, but she didn't expect Lily to ask her to marry someone else at this time. In anger, she retorted without thinking. When she went back, Lily was waiting for her to say this. When she saw her turning around and wanting to run away as soon as she finished speaking, she sneered. "You are just a cheap servant with no rules. Since Mr. Su doesn't like you, I naturally don't need to praise you and let you understand the difference between superiority and inferiority." To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 871. Why does he look down on me? I don't look down on him at all. He has a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks, eyes like mung beans and a nose like a coffin, a pair of windy ears, an ugly face with a short chin, and thin hair. Bai Yaoguang heard Lily say it was Suzhen who looked down on herself and couldn't help but retort. After she said these words, although she didn't know what the so-called eyes like mung beans and ears that attract the wind were, Suzhen could hear the word ugly face clearly. Even if she knew that the woman, it's hard to raise a villain, but at this moment, I can't help but want to hit her. Shut up. You're such a shameless maid. Lily's eyes turned cold. As soon as Bai Yaoguang heard Lily scolding her for being such a cheap maid when she saw him, he replied without thinking, "You're the one who's so cheap, your whole family." This time, before she could finish her words, the waiters around her could see the unhappiness on Lily's face. Before she could finish her words, they swarmed up and pushed her to the ground. "Let me go, let me go." Bai Yaoguang was now held tightly and began to struggle desperately. Lily came down from the steps and walked to her. When Bai Yaoguang saw her coming, he snorted coldly and said she raised her head and turned it aside, as if she would not let go even if Lily tried to coax her. Lily stretched out his hand and pulled her hair, shaking it hard. The original main force, dodge, was extremely large. With this swing, Bai Yaoguang felt that her scalp was about to be torn open. Before she could cry out in severe pain, she couldn't help but stumbled forward for 2 steps. The force caused the 2 waiters who had restrained her to stumble forward after her. Lily threw Bai Yaoguang back, and Bai Yaoguang fell to the ground with a pop, and her body slid forward and stopped. Only then did Lily retreat. Stood beside her. Obviously Zhao Bei's indulgence towards Bai Yaoguang these days has made her more courageous. In addition, although Zhao Bei has a weird temper, he has always been kind to her. Bai Yaoguang really didn't expect that Lily would suddenly attack her, and he was completely confused. When she came back to her senses and subconsciously tried to stand up with support, Lily had already stepped on her hair that was scattered on the ground. She stood up too hastily. This time her hair was stepped on, and she felt as if her hair had been torn out by the roots. Due to this inertia, her body fell backwards and hit the ground with a dong sound, her face flushed. Tears couldn't help but slowly appeared in his eyes. It's just a lowly maid, so arrogant. If you are so unruly next time, I will pull out your tongue and make it difficult for you to speak. Lily lowered her head and glanced at her, although her face did not look as bright as Bai Yao's before. It was so ferocious and cold, but inexplicably, it made her back feel cold. Lily Zhao had threatened to take her life in the past, but he didn't know why at that time. He said it in a scary way and deliberately made it look cruel to make people frightened, but she was not afraid at all. On the contrary, she was sure that he would not hurt her. When women face these things, they have an instinctive sixth sense. At that time, Bai Yaoguang always felt that Zhao Bei would not really kill her, so she acted fiercely in front of him several times. Unexpectedly, he not only ignored her, but actually from then on, he looked at her differently and remembered her in his heart. But Lily didn't look scary at this moment, but instead had a gentle smile on her lips. But at this time, Bai Yaoguang felt that Lily Zhao today was far more terrifying than Lily Zhao before. Thinking that when she just spoke, she didn't quarrel with him like before. Instead, without saying anything, someone stopped her, stretched out her hand to pull her hair, and threw her to the ground. Bai Yaoguang faintly felt that something was wrong. It's just that she was spoiled badly by Lily Zhao in the past. At this time, he was obviously a little scared, but when he heard Lily say this, Bai Yaoguang felt a sense of grievance welling up in his heart. Today was obviously Lily's fault. They had made an appointment to go shopping with her, but she didn't go. Unfortunately, she thought she had met the male protagonist she was destined to be, but she didn't expect Lily Zhao to be such a villain. Not to mention, he even hit himself. The more Bai Yaoguang thought about it, the angrier he became, and he blurted out the words without thinking. I misjudged you before. Men who hit women are the most incompetent and worthless men. She blurted out the words in anger, and Lily kicked her in the face without thinking. Bai Yaoguang didn't expect that she would do it as soon as she said so. When he saw her foot was about to step on his face, it was already too late to hide, and the bridge of his nose an unbearable feeling of pain surged up in her body. Before she could even hum, tears burst into her eyes and she could no longer say a word. Mr. Su's good marriage has been ruined. This matter has something to do with this young master. If you don't mind, this young master will send people to work hard to get the marriage back for you. What do you think, sir? Lily kicked Bai Yaoguang until she couldn't say anything. Suzhen was speechless. When Suzhen saw this scene, although she was a little surprised by Lily's cruel attack, she felt a little relieved. What Bai Yaoguang just said hurt his self-esteem. He was not a magnanimous person to begin with. At this time, he felt it was very relieving. In addition, now that he had Zhao Suyang, the object of his resentment, he no longer held a grudge against Lily as much as he did at the beginning. Lily treated him as an honored guest when he came, and the act of beating Bai Yaoguang just made him vent his anger. At this moment, most of the fire in his heart was gone, and he nodded and agreed without thinking. Thank you for your kindness, Master. It's just that Master Yang intervened in this matter, and Zhen was only worried that this would bring trouble to the Master. Suzhen's attitude was no longer as fierce as before, and her expression softened. In fact, he was thinking he needs to take a breath of relief. Anyone who has been given such a hat before marriage will be extremely unhappy in his heart. However, he has no power at the moment, so he can only let others bully him. But if Lily is willing to vent her anger for him, even if it means killing someone with a borrowed knife, he is naturally willing to do so. Even if it wasn't because of Su Zhen's incident this time, Lily would have faced Zhao Suyang sooner or later. The original owner himself didn't know what his wish was. In this case, Lily decided to continue on the path chosen by Zhao Suyang in the plot. Now, she wanted to get back the seat where Duke Jinyang sat for the original owner. This was what Duke Jinyang owed to Zhao Beihe. If Duke Jinyang, the father, had not used his son as a bait that day, he would have been a hostage under surveillance. Even if someone helped him, he would never be able to escape from the Lu Kingdom so easily. Because of his actions, the original owner had been bullied in the Lu Kingdom for many years, and even disguised himself as a woman because of it. He was greatly hurt. Today, Duke Jinyang being able to take charge of the Jin Kingdom, half of the position of Duke should belong to the original owner. She wanted that position, but she didn't want it for Bai Yaoguang. In the plot, Zhao Suyang clearly has the favor of Duke Jinyang, and he even owns the original owner who did not have the favor of his parents, but he wants to snatch Bai Yaoguang, the only one owned by the original owner, and Lily will not let him go either. Make a big fuss about Zhen. The orderer sent Su Zhen out, whose expression had softened a lot when Lily saw Bai Yaoguang sitting on the ground, covering her face and crying silently. She squatted next to her. Does it hurt? You disturbed Su Zhen's marriage. He is Su Hong's disciple. This is the only way I can protect you. It would be fine if you didn't admit it, but you just admitted it. Lily sighed. Bai Yaoguang, who was shocked by her beating and was in pain and fear, had a look of panic in his eyes when he saw Lily squatting in front of him, but when he heard her squatting down and asking him if it hurt, Bai Yaoguang felt relieved. After taking a breath, tears suddenly flowed out. The scene that Lily explained to her at this time made her feel more at ease. At first, she felt that Lily had changed too quickly, and she felt resentful. Now when she said it, she felt aggrieved and unwilling. What's wrong with admitting? One person does the work and the other takes responsibility. You don't need to come. She had just been kicked on the cheek, and half of her face was numb. Although her muscles and bones were not injured, her face was hurting everywhere now. The skeleton of the eye socket seemed to be broken, and the broken lip when speaking was even more painful. Bai Yaoguang was angry in his heart, and he endured the pain and said something in anger. A sarcastic look flashed in Lily's eyes. This Bai Yaoguang really learned not good. I was beaten just now for being quick to talk, and now I'm acting like this again. She curled her lips and laughed. There were still a few strands of hair that had just been pulled off Bai Yao's bald head on her wide cuffs. She reached out to pick it up, rubbed it twice with her index finger and thumb, opened her mouth and blew the hair. It fell to the ground. Lily's eyes were cold. You are just a slave, but you have the audacity to instigate Su Zhen's wife to elope with the slave. Once you are caught, the man will be a bastard and his life will be lost. The Jin dynasty uses the method of sitting together. If Su Zhen causes trouble, I will also be reprimanded by my father. If you don't arrest him, won't everything be fine? After all, you are timid and not like Zhao Suyang. At least he is more responsible than you. Bai Yaoguang muttered in dissatisfaction. Every time she said a word, her face seemed to be cut with a knife, and saliva kept dripping from the corners of her mouth. She reached out to catch it, and her face turned blue and white. The next moment Lily raised her eyelids, and her eyes fell on her like arrows. The gaze was not sharp, but it made her tremble all over. Lily smiled and ordered loudly. Take Bai Ji back and recuperate well. Without my order, she will not be allowed to step out of the door again. Bai Yaoguang was about to turn his face after hearing this, but Lily pursed her lips and stood up. Come. Obey, I've been hiding away from the limelight lately. I have some important things to deal with, so go back. If according to Bai Yaoguang's past character, if Zhao Lili wanted to comfort her so easily after beating her, that would not be possible. When she first met Zhao Beihe, it was not like Zhao Beihe had never whipped her, but the more he whipped her, the more dissatisfied she became, so she just let it go at first. Later, Zhao Beihe touched her for the last time, and she thought about it for several days. Fang Er wanted to come over to coax her, but she ignored him. To be continued.